Hi, I'm Carla Cummins. Welcome back to the Better Learning Podcast. I'm joined by our co-host, Nick, our education market leader out of Lubbock, Texas. So Nick brings a real world experience of boots on the ground and a perspective from someone who's worked directly within a district every single day. So Erica, you bring insights in education. So give me a brief introduction of who you are. I say Colorado, but it's a big state, right?
So yeah, I'm a native of Colorado. That's kind of rare. And it's a little branding thing that I get to patch onto my thing so I could proudly wear it. I love my state. It's one of my favorite things about me. So I tell people, take down my information. If you ever want to come to Colorado, I'll help you plan your little tours and I'll let you know the ins, outs, where to go. And so I just love all about that. It's my state's who I am. What else is there that's kind of fun about me? So I kind of got a little bit of a roundabout way in construction. I started off at school. So I'm going to take you guys way back. So let's do it.
Go.
I would start off in college. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a nuclear engineer. You know what I realized?
Oh,
Not that smart. So I went accounting, and it's just as equally as smart. But I went accounting, got out in the world. Very thankful for my accounting degree. It led me down really unique paths. I actually got to, here in Colorado, we get this lovely reputation for our medical marijuana. I actually got to be part of that experience. Such a fun time. So anyway, that experience kind of led me into just the importance of developing relationships as an entrepreneurial idea. And what happened was a good friend of mine that I ended up meeting was like, hey, you should try sales. And I said, wow, I don't know. I mean, I love talking, but do people really want to listen to me? And like, absolutely, you have something to do. So I got into construction by just, developing relationships for a major company. I had no experience, but I had this amazing boss. I have to give him a shout out, Mark Stutz. He really saw me. I had no brick experience, no construction experience, no sales experience, but he's like, I believe in you. And I am so thankful for him. And that really just skyrocketed my career into now where I'm at, as a BD person. And that's really got my start in this. So I do business development for Wells. Wells is a building systems who is really grounded in regional connections. And one of our real big trust building exercises is through K through 12 and learning environments. And we really help them connect, their common needs now to how they kind of build a building out to help provide solutions to that. And it's kind of where I am.
So did you jump from marijuana to building? Did you go directly from that?
Yeah, I went directly from helping marijuana distributors job cost marijuana plants into selling brick.
I love
right
it.
into it.
I love it. I know. What would you say the best part of that transition was?
Sales is such a unique perspective too. We obviously believe that entrepreneurship is a profession. We believe accounting is a profession. We believe architectural is a profession. We believe, superintendents is a profession. Sometimes we believe sales and we view sales as just like these people are out here just trying to close deals and, Wolf of Wall Street style, but it is actually a profession. And one of the biggest things for me is just really embracing that too, that I have to learn how to public speak. I have to make sure I can control my tone. I can make eye contact. I can get people to believe. There's a lot of research too as well. I have to make sure what I'm providing, I believe in, and it is providing a solution to gain that long-term trust. I have to believe that I too belong on the table, to make sure that, what I'm offering is something that you're going to need. And I also get the right to say no to the sale as much as you get the right to say no to the sale too as well. And so that's kind of been the biggest challenge and kind of shifting of my thought process is that where sales is a professional, it is something that takes development and we have to be part of it too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think any role that we have it's all people oriented, right? So what does that look like? And that's a skill that's transitionable through marijuana or
people do like that part about my background.
It's legal here in Arizona too. So I think the novelty for Colorado's worn off a little bit given all of that, but it is still cool. So what organizations are you part of that have given you the ability to grow in the construction industry?
Oh my gosh.
Are you
beyond just having really amazing bosses through my thing? I knew the bio that I kind of sent in, I highlighted a lot of my bosses because, I really live in the collective we. I do not believe anybody gets anywhere by just your hard work. It takes a team to make this whole thing go through. And so I really like to highlight the people who's been part of my success. So beyond just, being selective in the organizations that I work for and making sure I'm behind the product that I'm also representing, the company that I'm representing, that also means for like organizations too, right? So there's so many organizations out there that want to uplift the construction industry in whole. So what are those, and what can we really evaluate, and uplift my talents and can use my talents to then uplift the whole, tide. And some of that would be A4LE. I love A4LE, especially in the educational world. They do a wonderful job connecting educators, supers, facility managers, architects, GCs, product representatives like myself. Another one is CSI, Construction Specification Institute. I fully believe in them. Sometimes that specification word, people feel like it's going to be boring and it's just going to be these written documents. But if you want to talk about a good group of people, specifiers, they're like the accountants at the holiday party. They're just fun people to be around, but they do like, good sentence structure.
I used to be a member. Yeah. I used to be a member.
Yeah, I love CSI. I also am part of SMPS, which is a business development and marketing kind of group as well. All of these are going to be nationwide with like local chapters. That's really fun too. So those are the three that I've really decided to invest my time into. Now there's so many out there, and I'm not just saying just because of these three. Please look into it that makes sense for you in your professional organization, but don't just join to join. Okay, if you're going to join an organization, invest in it. Really make intentional connections. There's a community that you need to be part of? Is there a group that might need help with programs? Is there a way I can be on the board? Maybe you're not ready to fully dive into the full-term relationship of a board member, but there's definitely ways to get involved other than just showing up. Be part of that movement.
Yeah. Well, Erica, I should introduce you to some of my fun people in Colorado.
Good.
Well, obviously, right, the Better Learning podcast is grounded in education. So put on your education hat, because that's what we're really going to talk about. When we look at it, I think we've already figured out how you got involved in school design and educationally based, right? So going into and starting with Wells, did that, and education is one of the verticals that you guys focus on.
Correct.
Now.
Yeah.
Is that
all right? So I started creating, got into designing, helping design schools. So I'm not an architect. I'm not a GC. I'm going to be a building product that they ultimately use to then help the school actually become through to fruition. And so I got into this through obviously business development, which contrary to popular beliefs is not just happy hour and golf. Okay. And it is a solid part.
I love it.
But it's more than just that. Okay. Business development is about research and relationship at its core. So I spend a lot of my time studying enrollment trends, population growth, funding cycles, long-term facility needs. And I take all of this beautiful research that I get, and then I kind of translate into mutual support. So that can be done through stakeholders. It can help my company make decisions whether we're, going on the right transition path too as well for our companies, whether these superintendents or these principals and these community members are actually going through the right path too as well. And that has to include students too. Is this space and this option that I'm providing also includes students? Is it going to be for this students this year? Is it going to be generational students too as well? So in big words, my job is about cultivating real relationships that take real problems and connect with real solutions, right? That's what business development is. And yes, it does come with golf tournaments sometimes. But as I dug in to the K through 12 higher ed markets, I started noticing some real common headaches. I was tasked by my boss to kind of grow this community of the higher earning and learning environments. And so I said, okay, well, let me start researching into it. And so through this, I started noticing these really common kind of sticky points like tight budgets, really aggressive schedules. A lot of times the schedules have to be done while the kids are either, finishing while the kids are out of school so they can transition in. A lot of times you're building right next to an existing school where the kids are still in school. You have growing communities. Some of these communities are just skyrocketing. So how do you help with that? There was one school I worked on. It was a 10-year-old school and they already outgrew it. And so what do these kind of things look like? So we have these growing problems, and then more of that, it's just these schools are so left with doing more with less, right? They don't want to constantly go out for funding every time that there's a budget constraint. So how can we do more with less? How can we plan for the future, right? And that's where like myself and Wells really kind of came in. We're a national building solutions company. We specialize in prefabricated building systems a little bit, architectural and structural. And so it just really kind of helped me understand, here are all my components that I have and that I represent. And does it actually fit for K through 12? My boss has asked me to pursue K through 12 and higher learning. Is it actually a fit? And I realized it is a fit. Like there's a lot of things that kind of can be big. And I really took a lot of pride in that, because schools aren't just these buildings. They are the heartbeat of the community. They are where Friday nights happen. They're where families gather. They're where people get to wear school spirit. It's where somebody goes, people ask me all the time, hey, you're from the Springs? Yeah, I'm from the Springs. What high school did you go to? It's the first question that they ask. What high school did you go to? So it's important. It's part of who I am. It's part of my identity. It's part of what I am. So when our real questions came is not just, do I have a product to sell, but am I actually helping these learning environments to stretch their dollars to create an entire community? So when somebody asks me, what school did you go to? I can probably say and represent my team, go Spartans, right? That's kind of where it is.
Well, I'm curious, have you always been this meticulous of a learner, or what are some of the natural advantages you brought into this position?
I would say I always loved learning. Again, if you remember back in my intro, except for nuclear engineering. I quickly was like, get calculus out. But no, I really do like learning. I like connecting. I think that's my favorite part of business development and going back to being sales as a profession is you have to learn. If you're not constantly learning, then you're not literally learning how to help your customers, right, too, as well. And so when you start to see me as a profession, it does mean that I have to continue my education, just like an architect, just like a GC, just like lawyers, just like accounting. You have to do that. So yeah, I do enjoy learning, and I do enjoy researching to help people, because the more I can come prepared, the more I can really help guide these questions that need to be helped.
Well, I think every role you take on, right? Every job, let's just say, there's an element of learning that you just have to do in order to be good at that role and to understand, who your target audience is. So that leads us to the next question of when you're talking about education, and you said so many of them, right? Like communities are, or schools are the center of communities. They have their own distinct culture. They have their own distinct set of, really like rules that you go by, but they can oftentimes too make or break a community in a sense where you're looking at, is this a place where you want to live? That school's not so great. We don't want to live there. So when you say in your own words, what does radically student-centered mean? Because that's our tagline, right, on the podcast. What does that mean to you?
Oh, man. This one kind of took me a little while to kind of think about, and I really wanted to make sure I articulated it really well. And so I have this statement that I live by, and it's teamwork makes the dream work. So I played D1 soccer. You always had to be with your team, constantly kind of doing things. And it really kind of embedded it in me there, but it also really embedded in me when I actually started getting into a profession like sales. And I had to go back to my bosses, right? This teamwork makes the dream work. So when I think radically centered, I try to think, how is this environment developing kids to meet their own team too? So a lot of times we often live in the me, such as my role, my department, my grades, my agenda. Am I getting what I need, right? And so we start to have to really think, and the real impact is when we start doing everything in the we. When everything done right is generally done collectively, right? And if we're being honest, like building a team requires networking. And if you're not networking, then how are you building a team? And it's not just peer-to-peer. It's not student to student. It is also, teacher to student. It is principal to teacher. It is, senior to freshman. It is this kind of big, encompassing, intergenerational kind of way of doing it. And as much as we don't want to admit it, schools are networking machines. It is where you're going to build your cultivation too, right? So to go back to radically student-centered, okay, great, you taught your kid, photosynthesis, but have you taught these students to also how to build their team? That longevity is going to shape their lives too as well. And this networking can happen in formal ways like clubs, student organizations, athletics is a way too as well. But it also can happen in these really unofficial ecosystems too. Sometimes we use these terms, the jocks, band kids, skaters, robotic crew. These micro communities are so powerful, right? And so this is where people really start to form their identities, and these students are going to build long-term relationships. I'm still really good friends with people that I met in high school, and I love that. And that really started from these organic movement of micro communities. So oftentimes we do focus heavily on academics, and rightfully so. Algebra is important. I do use it every day. Don't listen to the memes. I do, especially when I was an accountant. So, but these schools are just far more than just coursework, right? Yes, I get it. When you get your high school diploma, it's going to say you can do X, Y, Z. But it also shows too, when you apply for colleges, or if you're in a higher ed too, and you're applying to jobs, they're going to ask you, how did you impact your culture? And so going back to this radically centered idea, I start to question the built environment itself. Is it designed, somatically to where kids can grow and really explore themselves too as well?
When we work with schools at K-12, it's not just about furniture or design. It's about impact. Our radically student-centered approach puts students at the center of every decision. From that first conversation to the final walkthrough, we're focused on creating spaces that actually work for the kids, the teachers, and the community. So if you're looking to do more than just check a box on your next project, let's talk. Visit K12.com. That's KAY-TWELVE.com and see how we're helping schools transform learning one student at a time. Because at K-12, it's not just about projects and furniture, it's about purpose.
Well, I am curious too. What do you think happens whenever adults, right, all the educational partners, when they come together to be radically student-centered? What kind of outcomes do you think result from that kind of connectedness? So when I think back to the word innovation. If you just rewound 5 to 10 years, the word innovation as an educator used to kind of feel big and even scary for a lot of educators. And now when we look at it, that word is embedded into schools, into their departments. There's entire departments, positions for innovation. And when I think about the word radically, when I think about that statement, to me, there can be no wrong in there, because the whole purpose of school is to help grow students, essentially. What kind of outcomes do you think happen whenever designers and architects and providers come together, builders come together to make sure that everything we're doing is truly for the kids, with the kids in mind first?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to kind of dissect this in a little bit of a couple parts. We're starting with your innovation. I'm so glad that that's part of all schools now. And how do you expect kids to be innovative if you're not letting them be themselves and have self-authorship of who they are, right? And so that's a real component. So, and I know that's tricky with students, probably teachers nowadays. I really do, have empathy for you, and maybe a way of, how do I let kids all develop themselves? But also I have a curriculum that you got to stick to too as well, right? And I have these rules. So we have to be careful on these rules. Are they, rules are going to be safety, but are they too rigid too as well to let this kind of start exploring? So I think when people start connecting from the architect, the GC, and then myself as business, it's really coming back to the why these students have, and really asking the districts, what is your rooted mission? And what's the mission that you want to come back to? Because that's going to be the guideline that everything that you do at the end of the day. So I have to understand, as I make these selections for you and I help guide you, and I start asking you, what is your main why? And help me understand that too, so I can make sure I'm guiding it too. Because I don't want there to be sacrifice in any of this. I don't want you to feel that you are sacrificing. A lot of these districts, when you do make a new building, or you are doing maybe remodeling too, a lot of times you do have to go out for funding. So you're so excited that this community saw this investment, and then you're immediately met with disappointment that you have to make sacrifices. And that's not what I want you to do. So staying rooted in alignment of what this mission is, I'm going to help guide you so it can be strategic versus sacrifice, right? And I think that's our core part that comes with making these decisions. We are all here for you, and it's ultimately all here for the community.
Yeah.
I love that. I love how you dissected that too. It helps my brain process it. And I think you said it well, right? Like at the end of it, there are sacrifices that are currently being made. And I think that's a really important part of our mission, is ultimately to make sure that we keep students at the center of every decision that is made, and not just as as something that we say, but it's something we actually live out as best we can. Carla, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's incredibly hard, like as you really look at it, and when we're looking at what is, radically student centered and what does that mean? And it is, Nick, exactly what you said, keeping students at the forefront of every decision that we make. But I also, too, I think we oftentimes miss, and you said it, Erica, so many times, like since we started talking in the last 20 minutes, we have a me mentality, right? So I think the biggest thing in what we do as people in designing, building, constructing, equipping, all of that as it relates to school facilities is like, what is the future me going to need? So I'm not going to be sitting in this seat in 25 years, ideally, right? Like I shouldn't be sitting in this seat in 25 years. I should have moved on, should have grown, should have, whatever. So what is the next me going to need to support future generations of learners? And that's a question that I think is sometimes so difficult to answer when it comes down to looking at an existing facility and what they're doing and what we're doing in a design and saying, this isn't for me. It's for me right now, but it's really for future me's.
Well, and in some communities, they're generational. Like we see here on the Eastern Plains of Colorado, there's generations too. So you may be a student today, but it might be my son tomorrow or my daughter tomorrow, right? And maybe hopefully, if I'm blessed, grandkids too, right? Like, so can be this investment that you do have to think beyond the me now.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, what are the best resources that you use to looking at like growing your knowledge as it relates to education? Because I think, do you do multiple verticals? So you're not just education, you're all the way across.
Correct. We do lots of verticals. Yeah.
So I think education, and I mean, anyone who does healthcare or hospitality is going to say they have different things too, right? And they might be the better, but I think education requires a different lens. What do you think the biggest resource for you has been in learning the vertical of education, especially, I mean, K through 12?
Yeah. So there are people out there who help schools in particular go after bonds. They have actually been some of my biggest supporters too, and just really diving into what they're doing. Reading master plans, super important, you guys. This is, when a district might be going out for a bond, there's this master plan. They're going to actually see what their needs are. They're actually taking this time, which is an investment, and it is costly to go through what their needs are. So reading those master plans, if they've had them out, talking to the bonds people in the bond cycles to understand what's coming up to fruition too as well, seeing what they're needing, researching the community. Actually, it's really important. Sometimes I think it's something that people forget to do too as well, is researching the community that the school's going into. What is the demographics of the community? Maybe actually go to a town hall meeting for one time. They're kind of unique. Sometimes you get like, somebody who just wants to ramble and has nothing to do, but then you actually find out some really valuable information that is concerning to the community too. Maybe it's, water rights, maybe it's lack of land, maybe there's just really kind of unique fun items that kind of come into it. So going back to is really looking into the community, what's their demographics that they're going to support? Is it diverse? Is it mainly, what kind of diversity are we talking about? Is it going to be a blue collar family? Is it going to be heavily, agriculture? Are we going to be heavy in the city? Like, so what kind of, if it's in the heart of Denver, is going to be a whole different need than what, rural Colorado is going to need. Is this community also kind of in the mountain towns? That's also going to have very unique, different vibes, than what you'll need down here in the city too as well. So really get to know your demographics is important, because that's going to ultimately lead these discussions to what my floor plan is going to look like. What do I want to bring to? Maybe it's not important to have a CTE here. Maybe it's a school in Vail and they're going to need their, 7th period off because they're all going skiing. Just kidding.
So is. Well, I mean, Erica, is there anything else? So as we're about to wrap up, right? Is there anything else? Are there any tidbits? Is there any sort of anything that you want to cover? Do you have a specific project that you want to talk about or anything?
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I went to, was a specific project. Because you guys, I was so excited to tell me you guys had the radically student-centered idea. This is it. So again, going back to, one of my favorite projects I got to talk to about is Montbello High School. It's here in Denver.
Okay.
in a very diverse neighborhood, very blue collar, very hardworking people who are proud of their community. And I want to say, like, we're going to go back because we got to understand the why. And the why is really important why this school got brought on, because this is what really highlights what community can do. So the school, I forget when it was built. I want to say 1950. Don't fact check me, but it was around then. And it was closed in 2010. And so students ended up having to be bused out of the neighborhood. They either had to go to charter schools or they had to be bused to other schools. And it was a real hardship on the community. So the community started coming back and just really fought hard to have that school reopened. And then he ultimately did. So Denver Public Schools decided to open it, voted unanimously to open it. But the community didn't just want a Band-Aid. They didn't want just this old school that had a small repairs. They wanted a new school. They wanted something to be proud. So that's what Denver DPS ended up giving them. And it was really fun to be part of it because it was about rebuilding trust and community. And so this DPS started engaging through surveys, advisory boards, public meetings, and it became very clear that this is what the community has fought for. The DPS is aligned with what those dreams are, and it's going to be fostering relationships. It's going to be celebrating multiculturalism, putting students first. They have some really unique creative spaces and learning spaces that they've done. This really translated into just organic movement from classroom to community space. And it was really fun. And one of my favorite parts, because I'm a sucker for some mid-century modern construction, is like this really cool, like a really cool conversational pit kind of in the front. It was like this gathering space. And it was good. And here's like, you guys, here's the kicker. This is how measurable this was impacted. Okay, I'm going to tell you, out of the 1,200 freshman seats that they had to fill in first year, how many do you think were filled?
1,200.
Oh, so close. 1,100, 1,100. So almost all of these things in the first year. And that's so beautiful because that really shows that the community wanted this. The community didn't want to drive. They wanted to be back in their thing. They wanted to represent the red and black, their school colors, you know? So after a school of being closed for almost a decade, they almost hit all of their enrollment numbers. And now they're actually hitting all their enrollment numbers. So this goes beyond all of that. This was more than just enrollment numbers. It's more of a systematic thing. You know, instead of students leading the neighborhood, instead of a building that symbolized closure in their community, you know, it became a visible investment. You know, this was a really beautiful part of it. It was also phased. So, you know, they had the students go back to the old school and then they built right next to the old school. And so, you know, the new school then opened once it's done. So they knew that this wasn't just going to be a Band-Aid. This isn't just...
Oh, wait, so stop. They put them back in the old facility.
So
they did.
Closed. They put them back in the old facility for a little while and then built the new school right next to it as they were trying to do it. Yeah.
And they're like, y'all are going to appreciate this new building.
And it's a beautiful campus. And the best part, too, is they actually did incorporate some of that old school that was really rooted in that community. Like the architecture was just like the stunning part of the architecture. So they actually kept some of that old school and incorporated into the news so that you can see that this was a community investment in a school. The community was really proud of it. And I just love that because it just shows what you can do with a school, you know? And so people are proud and it's really great. And so now you have people who went to this school, like you said, generational. This is in the heart of Denver. And so this isn't just rural, like this is heart of Denver. And so you have people who went to this school, now have grandkids going to the school and they can be proud to say that and they want to go.
Yeah, my ex-husband always tells my kids, he's like, don't you want to go to the same school as your sister? Everyone will know you. And I'm like, I don't know if it works that way anymore, but I sure hope it does, right? Because our schools are so much bigger and there's so many different things. But, well, as we're wrapping up, I just want to say, Nick, thank you for just being a great co-host and bringing your perspective in from the field. And then Erica, I think the biggest takeaway is your excitement and your stewardship of your great state of Colorado. So I'm going to call you because I need to go for a visit, but also too, I know that I need to introduce you to some of my good friends that are there. But to everyone listening, thank you for being part of this community. Today's conversation, if it sparked something for you, make sure to share the Better Learning podcast. Go on to your streaming device and follow us on Apple, Spotify, whatever it is that you use. But share this episode with a colleague and just keep the conversation going. We appreciate you.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Kelly Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.